Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly command respect without ever raising their voice? Why certain individuals can walk into a room and immediately shift the entire dynamic, not through charisma or charm, but through something far more subtle and infinitely more powerful? Asterisk, imagine for a moment that you're watching a chess master at work. To the untrained eye, they appear to be simply moving pieces across a board. But what you're actually witnessing is something far more profound, a mind that sees patterns where others see chaos, that anticipates moves 3 steps ahead while their opponent is still figuring out their next one. This chess master doesn't need to announce their strategy or boast about their skill. Their quiet confidence speaks volumes, and their opponents feel the weight of that intelligence long before checkmate is declared. Asterisk, this is strategic intelligence in action, and it's been shaping the course of human history for centuries. Asterisk, think about the most influential people you know personally, not the loudest ones, not the ones who demand attention, but those who somehow always seem to know exactly what to say and when to say it. They're the ones people naturally turn to for advice, the ones whose opinions carry unexpected weight, the ones who seem to navigate complex social and professional situations with an almost supernatural ease. Asterisk, what if I told you that this isn't a gift you're born with, but a skill you can develop? What if the difference between being reactive and being strategic, between being influenced and being influential, comes down to understanding principles that have been hiding in plain sight for over 500 years? Asterisk, in Renaissance Italy, a diplomat named Niccolò Machiavelli observed something fascinating about power. He noticed that the most successful leaders weren't necessarily the strongest or the most virtuous, but those who understood human nature so deeply that they could predict and influence behavior without force. They were like master craftsmen, but instead of working with wood or stone, they worked with psychology, timing, and perception. Asterisk, Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." This wasn't cynicism. It was recognition of a fundamental truth about human interaction. We're all constantly performing, constantly managing impressions, constantly trying to figure out what others are thinking. But what if you could step outside this game entirely? What if instead of being a player, you became the one who understands the rules so well that you can influence the outcome without anyone realizing it? Asterisk, this is where most people make their first crucial mistake. They think strategic intelligence means being manipulative or deceptive. They imagine it requires being cold or calculating in a way that destroys relationships. But true strategic intelligence is actually the opposite. It's about understanding people so well that you can create genuine value for them while achieving your own objectives. It's about reading situations so accurately that you can find solutions others miss entirely. Asterisk, consider this scenario. You're in a meeting where tensions are running high. 2 colleagues are locked in a heated debate, each trying to prove the other wrong. The loudest voices dominate the conversation, but nothing is being resolved. Most people in this situation either join the argument, try to play peacemaker, or simply tune out. But someone with strategic intelligence sees something different entirely. Asterisk, they notice the body language that reveals who's actually uncertain beneath their aggressive stance. They hear the underlying concerns that aren't being directly addressed. They recognize the ego dynamics at play and understand that this isn't really about the topic being debated. It's about status, recognition, and fear of being wrong. With this understanding, they can intervene in a way that allows both parties to save face while moving the conversation toward an actual solution. Asterisk, this person doesn't need to be the smartest in the room or the most experienced. They simply understand that every human interaction follows certain patterns, and once you learn to recognize these patterns, you can navigate them with remarkable precision. Asterisk, but here's what makes this truly powerful. This understanding changes how you see everything. You begin to notice the subtle signs that reveal what people are really thinking. You start to recognize when someone is testing you, when they're feeling insecure, when they're trying to manipulate you, or when they genuinely need help. You develop what ancient strategists called the ability to see around corners. Not supernatural foresight, but a deep understanding of cause and effect in human behavior. Asterisk. The fascinating thing is that once you develop this awareness, you realize that most people are operating on autopilot. They react predictably to certain triggers. They make the same mistakes repeatedly. They reveal their intentions through unconscious habits and patterns. It's not that they're unintelligent. They're simply unaware of how much they're communicating beyond their words. Asterisk. This creates an enormous advantage for those who learn to observe and understand these patterns. You begin to anticipate problems before they become crises. You can position yourself strategically before opportunities fully materialize. You learn to communicate in ways that naturally align with how people already think, making your ideas seem obvious and inevitable rather than foreign or threatening. Asterisk. But perhaps most importantly, you develop a kind of mental sovereignty that protects you from manipulation while making you genuinely more helpful to others. When you understand the games people play, often unconsciously, you stop taking their behavior personally. You see their insecurities, their fears, their desperate attempts to feel significant or secure. This perspective naturally generates both compassion and immunity. You can help them without being dragged into their emotional chaos. Asterisk. Think about someone you know who seems to have mastered this quality. They probably don't gossip much because they understand that information is power and loose talk diminishes credibility. They likely ask more questions than they answer because they know that listening reveals far more than speaking. When they do offer opinions, people pay attention because their words carry the weight of careful observation rather than impulsive reaction. Asterisk. These individuals have learned what Machiavelli called the art of being both fox and lion, having the cunning to recognize traps and the strength to act decisively when necessary. They understand that true power comes not from forcing outcomes, but from positioning themselves so advantageously that favorable outcomes become inevitable. Asterisk. Positioning begins with a fundamental shift in how you process information and make decisions. Instead of reacting immediately to events, you create space to observe and analyze. Instead of taking things at face value, you look for the deeper currents and hidden motivations. Instead of trying to control others directly, you focus on controlling your own responses and positioning yourself strategically within the larger system. Asterisk. The results of this approach can seem almost magical to those who don't understand it. You appear to have incredible intuition about people and situations. You seem to always know the right thing to say. Opportunities appear to find you rather than the other way around. Conflicts resolve themselves around you rather than through you. But there's nothing mystical about it. It's simply the natural result of understanding and applying timeless principles of human psychology and strategic thinking. Asterisk. What's remarkable is how quickly this transformation can occur once you begin paying attention to the right things. Within weeks of developing these observational skills, you'll start noticing patterns you never saw before. Within months, you'll find yourself naturally thinking several steps ahead in your interactions. Within a year, people will begin commenting on your wisdom, your insight, your ability to remain calm under pressure, qualities that seem to develop almost effortlessly once you learn to see clearly. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it begins with understanding a crucial distinction that most people never make the difference between intelligence and strategic intelligence. Regular intelligence helps you understand concepts, solve problems, and acquire knowledge. Strategic intelligence helps you understand systems, predict behavior, and influence outcomes. One is about processing information. The other is about positioning yourself advantageously within complex human dynamics. Asterisk. The ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu wrote, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." But strategic intelligence goes deeper than this. It's about understanding that in most life situations, there is no enemy, only people operating from their own fears, desires, and limited perspectives. When you can see the world through their eyes, while maintaining your own clear vision, you gain the ability to find solutions that serve everyone's interests. Asterisk. This requires developing what we might call emotional radar, the ability to sense the underlying emotional currents in any situation. Most people are so caught up in their own internal experience that they miss the rich information constantly being communicated through tone of voice, body language, word choice, and energy. But when you learn to read these signals accurately, human behavior becomes remarkably predictable. Asterisk, for instance, when someone becomes suddenly defensive, it's usually because they feel threatened or exposed in some way. The defensive behavior isn't really about you. It's about their internal state. Understanding this allows you to respond to their underlying concern rather than their surface behavior. Instead of matching their defensiveness or trying to argue them out of it, you can address the fear or insecurity that's driving it. This often transforms the entire interaction instantly. Asterisk. Similarly, when someone becomes overly aggressive or domineering, they're typically compensating for feeling powerless or unheard. Rather than engaging in a power struggle, strategic intelligence suggests finding ways to help them feel heard and respected while still maintaining your own boundaries. This approach often reveals that what seemed like opposition was actually a cry for acknowledgement or understanding. Asterisk. The key insight here is that most human conflict stems not from genuine disagreement, but from people feeling misunderstood, undervalued, or threatened. When you can accurately identify and address these underlying concerns, you can often resolve seemingly intractable problems with surprising ease. Asterisk. This understanding extends to every area of life. In professional settings, you begin to see that office politics aren't really about the issues being debated. They're about people trying to feel significant, secure, or valued. In personal relationships, you recognize that arguments are rarely about the surface topic. They're about deeper needs for connection, respect, or autonomy. In social situations, you understand that most behavior is driven by people's attempts to manage their image and feel accepted. Asterisk. Once you see these patterns clearly, you can respond to what's really happening rather than what appears to be happening. This makes you incredibly effective at resolving conflicts, building alliances, and creating value for others. But it also protects you from getting caught up in other people's emotional turbulence. Asterisk. Consider how this plays out in a typical workplace scenario. Your colleague seems to be undermining your project in meetings, making subtle criticisms and raising unnecessary complications. The natural response might be to defend yourself, argue back, or escalate the conflict. But strategic intelligence suggests looking deeper. What if their behavior isn't really about your project at all? What if they're feeling overlooked for promotions, insecure about their own performance, or threatened by your success? Asterisk. With this understanding, you might approach them privately and ask for their insights on improving the project. You might acknowledge their expertise in areas relevant to your work. You might find ways to give them credit or recognition that costs you nothing but means everything to them. Often, this simple shift from defending to understanding transforms an adversary into an ally. Asterisk. This approach works because it's based on a fundamental truth about human nature. People generally respond positively when they feel truly seen and valued. Most destructive behavior stems from people feeling invisible, unimportant, or misunderstood. When you can make them feel genuinely recognized and appreciated, Their need to create problems often disappears entirely. Asterisk, but strategic intelligence isn't just about managing other people's emotions. It's equally about managing your own. One of the most powerful skills you can develop is the ability to separate your emotional reactions from your strategic responses. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means not letting your emotions make your decisions for you. Asterisk, when someone criticizes you unfairly, your emotional reaction might be anger or hurt. But your strategic response might be curiosity about why they felt the need to attack you, or recognition that their criticism reveals their own insecurities more than any truth about you. When someone tries to manipulate you, you're emotional. Reaction might be frustration or resentment, but your strategic response might be calmly setting boundaries or simply disengaging without drama. Asterisk. This emotional self-regulation gives you enormous advantages in any situation. While others are being reactive and predictable, you remain calm and thoughtful. While they're being driven by their impulses, you're being guided by your objectives. While they're creating chaos, you're creating clarity. Asterisk, the development of this capacity requires practice, but it begins with a simple shift in focus. Instead of asking, "How does this make me feel?" start asking, "What is this situation really about?" Instead of, "How can I prove I'm right?" ask, "How can I achieve the outcome I actually want?" Instead of, "How can I make them understand?" ask, "What do they need to feel in order to be receptive to my perspective?" Asterisk. This shift in questioning naturally leads to more strategic thinking and better outcomes. You begin to see that winning arguments often means losing relationships. That being right isn't always the same as being effective, and that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Asterisk, perhaps most importantly, you develop the ability to play the long game. While others are focused on immediate gratification or quick wins, you're building sustainable advantages and lasting relationships. You understand that real power comes not from dominating individual interactions, but from consistently creating value and building trust over time. Asterisk, this long-term perspective changes everything. You stop needing to win every battle because you're focused on winning the war. You stop needing immediate recognition because you're building lasting influence. You stop reacting to every provocation because you understand that your restraint itself communicates strength and wisdom. Asterisk. The result is a kind of quiet confidence that others find both attractive and slightly mysterious. You seem to know something. They don't, to see something they're missing. This isn't because you're inherently superior, but because you're operating from a different framework, one based on understanding systems and patterns, rather than just reacting to surface events. Asterisk. People begin to seek your counsel because they sense your perspective is broader and deeper than most. They trust your judgment because you've demonstrated the ability to remain clear-headed under pressure. They respect your opinion because you don't offer it carelessly or defensively. Asterisk. This influence accumulates over time, creating opportunities and advantages that compound exponentially. You become someone others want to work with, confide in, and support, not because you've manipulated them, but because you've consistently added value to their lives by understanding what they truly need and helping them get it. Asterisk. This is the ultimate expression of strategic intelligence, the ability to create win-win outcomes so consistently that success seems to follow you naturally. You're not taking advantage of others. You're helping them succeed in ways that align with your own objectives. You're not manipulating situations. You're understanding them so clearly that you can find solutions others miss entirely. Asterisk. The journey to developing this capacity begins with a single step, deciding to observe more carefully and react less automatically. Starting today, you can begin paying attention to the patterns around you, the motivations behind behavior, the emotional currents beneath surface conversations. You can start asking better questions, listening more deeply, and responding more thoughtfully. Asterisk each time you choose understanding over judgment, strategy over reaction, long-term thinking over short-term impulse. You're building the mental muscles that create genuine influence and lasting success. This is not about becoming someone different. It's about becoming more fully yourself, but with the wisdom to navigate the world as it actually is, rather than as you wish it were.